In 44 BC, Julius Caesar was assassinated, and the most powerful vacancy in the ancient world opened. The man best positioned to fill it was not Octavian, not the Senate, not any of the conspirators who had driven the blade. It was Mark Antony, Caesar's most trusted general, the man who had fought beside him across Gaul, who had commanded his armies with brilliance, who had delivered the feral oration that turned Rome against Caesar's assassins and secured the empire's loyalty. He was everything Rome respected: physically imposing, militarily gifted, politically connected, personally magnetic. Plutarch described him as having the look of Hercules about him. Men followed him not because they were ordered to, but because he made them believe the impossible was achievable. He had already proved it, campaign after campaign, victory after victory, an unbroken record of military brilliance that made him the most feared general of his generation. After Caesar's death, he formed the Second Triumvirate, 3 men dividing the Roman world between them. And of the 3, Antony had the strongest claim to supremacy. The best armies, the most battle experience, the deepest loyalty from Rome's soldiers. Octavian was young, politically shrewd, but militarily untested. If you were watching in 44 BC and asked who would inherit the Roman world, every rational answer pointed to Antony. And then he went to Egypt. In Egypt, he met Cleopatra. She didn't arrive quietly. She arrived on a golden barge, purple sails, silver oars moving to the sound of flutes, herself reclining beneath a canopy of gold, dressed as Aphrodite, the goddess of desire. The scent of perfume reached the shore before the barge did. The people of Tarsus left the marketplace to watch. Even Antony's own attendants deserted their posts. Plutarch records that Antony was left sitting alone, while the entire city went to the river. It was not an arrival. It was a calculated seduction, and it worked completely. From that moment, something shifted in Mark Antony. Not immediately obvious, not dramatic at first, just a gradual reordering of priorities. Alexandria over Rome, pleasure over politics. The brook over the battlefield. He and Cleopatra formed a society they called the Inimitable Livers, a group dedicated entirely to pleasure and excess. Banquets that lasted until dawn, elaborate entertainments that consumed entire weeks. While Antony feasted, the empire waited. And the world kept moving without him. Now, before we follow Antony to where this ends, we need to pause, because this is not a Roman problem. It is not a first-century problem. It is not even a Mark Antony problem. It is a human one. The struggle between desire and destiny has confronted every generation. Every person who has ever stood at the edge of something great and felt the pull of the brook. Scripture understood this long before Rome existed. And long before Antony ever set eyes on a golden barge, God designed a test. Not to measure strength, not to measure courage, not to measure military skill, but to measure something far more revealing: how a man drinks. Israel had an enemy. The Midianites had been raiding their land for 7 years, destroying crops, stealing livestock, driving entire communities into hiding. A nation ground down slowly until they cried out to God. And God answered, not with an army, with a man. His name was Gideon. And God's first instruction wasn't, build your forces, sharpen your weapons, study your enemy. It was, you have too many men. 32,000 soldiers stood ready. Too many, God said. Send home anyone who is afraid. 22,000 left. 10,000 remained. Still too many. Take them down to the water and watch how they drink. 10,000 men, exhausted, thirsty, having marched through wilderness and heat. The desire for water was real. Nobody was wrong for wanting to drink, but something beyond thirst was being revealed. and God was paying attention. Most of the men threw themselves down, faces to the water, surrendered completely to the moment of relief, unaware of the enemy, unaware of anything beyond the immediate satisfaction. 9,700 men sent home. But 300 knelt differently. They cupped the water in their hands, brought it to their mouths, satisfied the thirst without surrendering to it. They stayed upright, alert, present to something beyond the moment. God watched, and from those 10,000 he kept 300. With these I will save Israel. The text doesn't spell out every reason, but what it shows us is this: God observed the brook and kept those who stayed upright. The difference was not the thirst, it was what the thirst revealed, because desire always reveals something. It exposes what already lives beneath the surface. Scripture leaves us with 5 markers, 5 ways to recognize when something good is quietly becoming something dangerous. The first marker: desire that makes you forget your mission. The 9,700 fell to the water. For a few moments, nothing existed except relief. The battle disappeared. The enemy disappeared. The mission disappeared. The brook became their entire world. The 300 drank differently. They satisfied their thirst without forgetting why they had come. That is the first warning sign. Whenever a legitimate desire becomes so consuming that it makes you lose sight of your calling, the brook is beginning to drink you. Rome slowly faded from Antony's view. Alexandria became everything. Second marker: desire that slowly replaces God's voice. It almost never happens dramatically. One small compromise at a time, one distraction, one indulgence, one postponed prayer, until the brook becomes more familiar than God's presence. The tragedy is not that God stopped speaking. The tragedy is that something else became louder. The third marker: desire that dulls your awareness. Unmanaged desire narrows your world. You stop noticing warning signs. You stop recognizing unhealthy patterns. You stop seeing what everyone else can already see. By the time you realize what is slipping away, the work has already been done. The fourth marker: desire that damages the instrument God gave you. The inimitable livers. They didn't simply indulge excess, they celebrated it. But the body is the instrument through which God asks us to fulfill our calling. Whatever slowly destroys the instrument eventually destroys the mission attached to it. The fifth marker: desire that leaves casualties behind. This is the one we underestimate most, because we tell ourselves our private choices only affect us. They rarely do. Every unmanaged desire has a radius. It reaches spouses, children, friends, communities. The question is never simply, what is this doing to me? The deeper question is, who else is standing close enough to be wounded by it? Those are the 5 markers: desire that makes you forget your mission, desire that replaces God's voice, desire that dulls your awareness, desire that damages the instrument God gave you, desire that leaves casualties behind. Antony ignored every one of them. Now history carries us to the coast of Greece, to the day his brook finally asked him to choose. 31 BC, the coast of Greece, the Battle of Actium, the moment the Roman world would be decided. Antony still had advantages: more ships, more experienced sailors, a force that by most calculations should have been sufficient. The battle began, and for a time it was contested. Neither side had broken the other. The outcome was still open, and then Cleopatra's ships began to withdraw, 60 Egyptian vessels turning away from the fight, retreating. And Mark Antony, in the middle of a battle he had not yet lost, turned his ship and followed her. His men watched it happen. the flagship of the greatest general in the Roman world, sailing away from the fight. Not because the battle was lost, not because the odds had turned, but because the brook called, and he answered. He always answered. He had been answering since the golden barge arrived at Tarsus. His fleet surrendered, his armies dissolved. Within the year, Mark Antony was dead, and the young man who had been quietly building while Antony feasted inherited the Roman world, became Augustus Caesar, the first emperor of Rome. Not because he was more gifted than Antony, not because he was more courageous, but because when Antony went to the brook, he stayed at his post. Now, this is not a story about Roman generals. It is a story about you, about the brook you are currently drinking from, about the desire that has been quietly reordering your priorities, not dramatically, not obviously, just gradually. Alexandria over Rome, pleasure over purpose, the brook over the battlefield. You may not have a golden barge on the Nile, but you have a brook. Everyone does. Something legitimate that became consuming. Something that started as relief and became residence. Something that satisfies the thirst, but is slowly taking everything else with it. The 9,700 were not evil men. They were thirsty men who forgot, for just a moment, that there was something more important than the relief, and that moment cost them the mission. How long has your moment been lasting? We began with a man Rome believed would inherit the world, the greatest general of his generation, a man with experience, influence, loyal armies, every advantage history could offer. And yet history remembers him not for what he gained, but for what he could not let go. Because kingdoms are not usually lost in a single day. They are surrendered one small choice at a time. One neglected responsibility, one repeated compromise, one brook that slowly becomes home. Gideon's 300 remind us that the first was never the problem. The question was always what they did with it. One group knelt to satisfy a need, the other surrendered themselves to it. That difference decided a battle, and centuries later, it decided an empire. Perhaps that is why Antony's story still matters. Not because most of us will command armies, or stand on the deck of a flagship, or rule nations, but because every one of us will stand beside a brook. A place where comfort competes with calling, where relief competes with responsibility, where today's desire quietly negotiates with tomorrow's destiny. The question is not whether you are thirsty. You are. The question is whether your desires still serve your purpose, or whether your purpose has begun serving your desires. Because the tragedy of Mark Antony was never that he loved something. It was that he loved it more than the future placed in his hands. History remembers the empire he lost. Scripture remembers the 300 who stayed ready. Both stories ask the same question. When your moment comes, how will you drink? The Constant North. Subscribe, follow, and share for more.